Welcome everybody. It's your boy Hardy Boy, aka Lamar Hardy, coming to you with another episode of the Two Fingers Podcast. We have a special episode for you today with two very close friends and family members of mine here to showcase who they are, what they do, their knowledge on the topic at hand, and we hope you enjoy it as well. So first and foremost, I'm gonna present to you Mr. Derek Hurschman. He is our special guest for the evening. All right, you all know Siron Hardy. She's been here on seasons prior. However, she's making her debut back on the show as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the two Psyched majors. How you guys doing? How you guys doing?
Doing well, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Feeling
Um,
good, feeling good.
so we came upon this episode because actually, so a little backstory. Derek and I were teammates slash player coaches when we were playing overseas, and that's how we kind of connected and got our bond together. So we pretty much stay in touch like monthly or bi-monthly every 2 months, but we do stay in touch on each other's endeavors, whether it's social media or just watching it on YouTube or even just calling each other. And that's how we came upon this episode. Derek actually reached out to me and was just checking in on me, and I truly appreciate it because sometimes I'm so focused on work and other life things that I do forget to sometimes reach out. And, we were kind of talking about where we are in our career fields, what we are pursuing, and how we plan on continuing on to gain more knowledge. And this is where we kind of ended up. So he expounded on what he is, and he's going to expound with you all. And to be quite frank, a lot of his stuff kind of connects to what Saran is doing as well in her educational background. So without further ado, I'm gonna let them talk a little bit about themselves. We're gonna get into these questions. It's gonna be a good show. All right. So first and foremost, Mr. Hurstman, Derek Hurstman, how you feeling, man? What's going on? It's been a minute.
It has been a while since I think I've seen your face. Like you said, we've talked on the phone quite a bit, especially I know I called once you got your master. So again, huge congratulations on that because that was
Appreciate you.
awesome.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and like you said, when we were playing in Australia, I don't know if you remember, but I was actually doing my masters while we
You
were over
were.
while we
You
were
really
playing.
were.
So and we were working at the same time too. So we were all super busy. Yeah, we were getting after it back then.
Yeah,
Um,
we were young and getting it, young and hustling. That was it's crazy how many years like the pandemic was like a legit like maybe a year and a half, 2 years, but it literally took like 3 4 years from everybody. So it legit we're like, wow, that was a while ago because geez,
it
when
was
did
what
I go? I went
Australia
over
was
there
Australia was 2019.
2019,
Yeah.
yeah. So I went over there at like 23. I went over there at 23. Oh man. Just the thing, or maybe 24. I don't know, but it was one of the majors. And now sitting here at 29 is like, dang, how quickly, how
So yeah, if you
quickly it
were
goes
24,
by.
I'd have been 26. So yeah, time does fly because now I'm 30.
Flying.
So
All right. So with that being said, Derek, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know we kind of expounded on what we did in Australia playing football, but who you are, and how you got into the career path or the degrees you have now.
so again, like Lamar said, my name is Derek. I'm a psychotherapist right now, and I'm also a doctoral candidate. So I am right now, my doctoral program is called Applied Clinical Psychology, which is basically working directly hands-on with patients. So it's not as much, there is research behind it, but it's not as much the PhD, which is, the doctor of philosophy, as much as it is the PsyD, which is doctor of psychology. So my title, once I complete my dissertation, will be MS and PsyD. So I'm already have a master's in science, which is sports psychology, which right now has kind of gone back and forth on the moniker of sports psychology and performance psychology to cover a more broad scope. Um, so that said, background of how I got into this, I think psychology, being the patient, really set the scene for me when I was growing up. Dealing with a lot of ACEs, as Saran might be familiar with, it was adverse childhood experiences. And I remember seeing a psychologist was actually one of the very few places that I felt comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the few places that I felt safe. And it was kind of an escape from the real world for me to be there an hour a week. Um, so it had a very big impact on me growing up, and I will give all the credit to my psychologist back then. I'm not going to say his name, but he's a great guy, still works now, and we actually do keep in touch as well. I go back to him every now and then to do some client work myself. I think it's really important as a psychologist to have a psychologist to talk to as well. Um, maybe Siron can back that up later on as we go on. But yeah, that was really the biggest reason I got into psychology. And it kind of went on the backside for a while when I got to college, because college was all football, you know, and then right after college was overseas. Of course, that's where Lamar and I met. And then kind of while in that, I was kind of realizing there had to be another thing that to do, because we weren't going to be able to play football forever. And so that's kind of
Right.
when I hopped on the masters, tried to get in the master's program, was accepted for that, so on and so forth, did that, and then got accepted into a doctorate program. So it's been a lot of football and a lot of psychology, basically. So that is pretty much how I define my life.
And it goes in hand with you said your sports psychology, and what was the other one? The dual
Applied
part?
clinical psychology.
Applied clinical. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that was pretty interesting. I like how everything, came full circle. You connected it to, not only why you got into it, but you also applied it to the aspects of your life growing up in the sports realm. So everything kind of stays around who you are, what you know. And I think that it's always easier to find your passion in a career when you stick to things that are close to your foundation or your core. So with that being said, so Ron, let's tell us about a little bit about your transition and how you moved into the field you're in now too.
Yeah, for sure. So right now I'm getting my master's in a dual degree in forensic and legal psychology, as well as clinical and mental health counseling. So I got my undergrad in psychology, just regular psychology. And rather than being on the sports side, I had a very athletic upbringing and everything, but I kind of wanted to go into psychology in a different route. And it started in high school. And I kind of aimed more towards that like criminal minds, like the mind of a serial killer route, of course. And obviously that's what everybody always thinks about when you first say forensic and legal psychology. That's where they immediately go to, is like mind reading and things like that. But so I started out with my interest of being like into serial killers and things like that. But as I progressed into my, master's and everything, and discussed with my professors and just saw the different avenues that forensics are applied in, I kind of wanted to, I guess, tailor my assistance or help more towards to kids rather than like focusing on adults, because kids are obviously more impressionable. Like adults, it's difficult to kind of change their behaviors. So I feel like it could be more impactful working with kids. So actually right now I'll be starting practicum in the fall at the Child Advocacy Center. So that'll be like a nice little taste to see like how counseling kids that face ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences that you mentioned a little bit, how that can kind of how I can help those communities and things like that. So yeah, it's
That's
kind
cool,
of
man.
interesting.
Honestly, and I'm first of all right, two things. Thing number one, I didn't know about this. She's doing a lot of stuff on her own. So yes, even though we are siblings, a lot of the stuff I don't know about. But also a disclaimer. When she says she's into serial killers, understand she's talking about the study of the mind. So I don't want anybody being like, oh, but she's always been interested. Like she's watched Beyond Scared Straight, like all those 48 hours, that stuff. When we were growing up, that was like I would never sit down there and watch her, but she's always been interested in that stuff, which makes sense because that's just this is how the mind is. And so it's understanding why you thought this or you reacted or why everything went in this route that you thought of. And so psychology has a bunch of different avenues, as you can see. We have four here in the show. I'm sure there's many more that they can expound upon. But with that being said, we're going to stick to the four here with you two. So, you guys started, Derek, you told me that you had your own personal reasons on why you started on this path and whatnot. So if you can a little bit elaborate, not to get too personal, but elaborate on, why this path was so impactful for you. And, was this something you thought about, like if you when you left high school and you went to college, you like, I want to be in psychology, I want to be sports psychology, etc. Like, was that something you were thinking coming in, or were you thinking, accounting would be kind of cool, and then you switched last minute or something?
So I'll say this. I never really dreamt of going this far with psychology. I always was interested in it, and I figured I didn't really know what to major in, so that was kind of my major throughout undergrad. However, when I went overseas right after undergrad, I mean, I had no idea. All I wanted to do was play football and coach football. There was nothing else I wanted to do. That was my main focus. Um, and it wasn't until I got injured when I was playing in the GFL, and I realized I was like, okay, this might not last forever. And so that's when I started the transition a little bit. Okay, let me get a little backup plan here. And one of the big things to be a Division I coach is they would like you to have a master's degree. So that's when I started trying to pursue the master's. Did end up getting that. But real again, all of this stemmed truly from football, and football being kind of my defense and coping mechanism towards a lot of the, the ACEs, the trauma that I was dealing with at home when I was younger, or not at home in general, but just dealing with in life. Let's put it that way.
And can you elaborate? So are you saying ACE? Like what is that?
So ACE is adverse childhood experience. And
Okay.
there's a lot of studies focusing on this, as your sister mentioned, especially with developmental psychology, and then as well just with attachment, which is a psychological theory of how
Mm.
a person is brought up. So there is a lot of now studies being done around experiencing a lot of adverse childhood experiences to, let's say, more pathology in a sense, so more general mental health, because I was going to say personality disorder, but again, that's not necessarily true, and that's not overarching. So more pathology as it is, so more disease, mental disease.
Nice. And
Okay,
as you
break
can
that down
see,
because
yeah, I was about to say,
pathologizing, like,
as you
yeah.
can see, these high AP vocabulary SAT words that's being
Sorry, I
thrown out.
apologize.
We're gonna need, but no, I mean, what I'm saying, that's why I wanted you guys to do this, because I wanted you guys to be in your realm and elaborate, but also, you guys are also capable of bringing it down to, us earthly people, us laymen who may not be at that scholastic level. But that's why I asked about what the ACE is, because I don't even know what that is. But basically, what you're saying is, how children are products of their own environment, right? You soak things in like a sponge, and then that's pretty much how your development comes up, is because your society kind of grooms you, and especially at home, like you get no other exposure than at home and or school. So that is really much like most of your development, and by the time you get to being an adult, you've already developed your foundation and your core for what it is that you are going to be. And then I guess it goes into your idea of more personality at that point, as opposed to pathology. I think pathology is probably more so in the youth, right, when developing and
Like
stuff.
a proper diagnosis. That's really all pathologizing.
Okay.
It's like getting
Yeah.
that proper diagnosis within like the DSM and all that.
Nice, nice. Okay, so also your psychology path, was this always, I know I elaborated on some of the shows you watched, but were you, when you went to, school as a volleyball, all met player, were you like, I can get into psychology a little bit?
Yeah, I think once I went into, like I said, I went to AP psychology in high school, and that's when my psychology and everything. And then, so when I got to college, I had like an immediate, I declared my major. That was simple, like easy. And then probably my junior year, I declared, or my sophomore year, I declared like my concentration in forensic psychology. So far, I kind of knew the path I wanted to take involved like the criminal realm. I didn't really know exactly in the place where I wanted to be. Like I just figured out I wanted to work with kids probably these last couple semesters being in school, and especially dabbling in the clinical side since I finished all my FOP classes. I'm in the clinical counseling, everything. And I started to get interested in like forensic interviews with children and like working with those who have faced different traumas or different groomings and things like that. So I always knew I wanted to go far with psychology because I'm small for volleyball. So I knew the professional route wasn't gonna make me no bread. But
It seems
and
like the
it's not about
professional
the
sport
money.
for all three of us was hitting us upside our head.
Yeah, I knew volleyball wasn't gonna take me too far, especially because I'm pretty injury prone too. So I kind of knew psychology was my route for a long time.
Nice, awesome. And it seems like both of you guys are applying your educations in the field that you are in right now. So, with that being said, can you elaborate? I know there's so many probably different types of psychology out there, but can you differentiate, or okay, explain the two that you guys both study, and then how do they differentiate from each other? So for Derek, again, I keep forgetting the second one. You have sports psychology and
Sport and clinical. So
sport and clinical. Okay.
so when I said the word pathology, right, we're talking about mental illness, right? So, and that's ranging from anything from like agoraphobia, which is right, a fear of going outside, social anxiety, right, socializing within, a bunch of people, from obsessive compulsive disorder to, antisocial personality disorder, right? So any kind of, it's a very broad spectrum with clinical psychology. And I think a lot of the newer psychologies, for example, let's say, oh my goodness, like, existential psychology, which is a newer field of psychology, not too new, but it's definitely a newer one, right? Is kind of based off of the original people who started clinical psychology and psychoanalysis, right? As we know, so there's clinical psychology is very broad ranging, and then I would say, most of the people that I deal with would be depression, anxiety, men's issues, and then on top of that, the sports psychology deals with motivation. This gets into more of the performance anxiety, and this is where I get to broaden my client work, I guess I would say, a little bit more, because then this opens up a little bit more for me. Because again, it's not just athletes that I'm working with; it's working with any kind of high performance or high stress job. So it makes it really fun for me. And the way I describe it to a lot of people is, I look at someone who's stuck here on their plateau. My job is to get you to the next level, right? And then so on and so forth.
That is very in depth, and you kind of almost answered a couple of these other questions, but I love it. You said something very specific. You said, I think, what you say, existential therapy, which is like
Existential
the
psychology. Yeah, just using that as an
psychology.
example.
I know, but you said that was like kind of the study of those who created psychology, correct?
No. So excuse me. So sorry. So clinical psychology, again, is a very overarching umbrella statement for psychology. Another form of psychology, like we were talking about, right? There's existential psychology, there's sports psychology, there's forensic psychology, right? There is developmental psychology, there is educational psychology, industrial psychology, right? So
So
there's
you
a
were just listing off the
oh yeah,
multiple branches. Okay.
absolutely right. So they're all different in their own respect, but they all base back to a lot of the same like a lot of the same bases as pretty. I mean, I couldn't really say that one doesn't overlap with the other.
Mhm.
And
That
Sharon
makes
probably
sense.
she'd probably agree with that. I don't know, but
No, I'm sure he does. And Saran, so for you, you have forensic and clinical. Is that what it is too?
Yeah.
And so, okay, before Saran explains, is clinical kind of like the basis? Does all psychology kind of have to have that clinical idea or that aspect to what they study and work with?
so let me say this. The one thing I'll say about clinical psychology is that and to Saran's credits, right, is she mentioned to give a diagnosis, right? With psychoanalysis, which is really the original part of psychology, which is basically, sitting sitting on a chair, and you can't see the psychologist, and you're kind of just talking about random feelings and everything like that, which I think is the way that people do view psychology, even now to this day, and it's not like that. There is still people who do that old style of psychology, that psychoanalysis, but it's not as common now. But yeah, I think the thing with that is right. The psychoanalysis is more of just a deep dive into the person, for the fact to make psychology billable, right, with insurance. That's where pathologies really came in, as your sister mentioned, with the DSM, ICD codes, and all that kind of stuff, which is how we charge insurances, and
Okay.
that's how we can actually give someone a legitimate diagnosis, a medical condition, which is a pathology.
Okay. So the clinical side is just kind of like a complement or an accompanying of, and just basically back to the diagnosis, like being able to, give them, I just said a diagnosis, but pathology, right? Like that's kind of where I'm trying to learn, yo. Y'all can see how lost I am. This is like above I am a sociologist. I study human behaviors. I don't do mine. I don't
Listen,
do
there's
mine.
behavioral psychology too, so you know it's that you
Right.
definitely know part of this.
I just do mine. I do behavior, not the mind. So enough of like clowning myself and embarrassing myself. So Saran, for you, can you kind of differentiate between your two double majors that you're doing?
Yeah, for the most part, as far as like F forensic psychology, you really don't need to do the dual program because I know within like getting my master's, the FLP side is more focused on like intelligence and doing the research part of it. And I just decided to do this dual degree because I know I wanted to work with people. And in order to work with people, you need to have those like counseling type skills, those clinical skills to be interpersonal with your clients and like learn how to do like crisis intervention, especially in this type of field that I want to do, like learning how to intervene in like a crisis or trauma informed care type things like that. So just to kind of point that out, for forensic psychology, you don't need to have a dual degree in clinical if you want to just go to like the CIA type route and do intelligence or mitigation. But forensic and legal psychology is basically just that intersection of the law and crime and working with humans. So it can really, it, like I said, you can just be a mitigation specialist and kind of, you know, dig up things of an individual's backgrounds in order to bring it to court. You can be a forensic psychologist who is like a expert for expert testimonials and things like that. I didn't want to do that. Like that's intense. That gets scary. The cross examinations and things like that. So that's probably like the major difference as far as also forensic psychology alone doesn't really look to not, I don't want to say like cure the patient or whoever's like in front of you. It's really just to get information and almost like move them along in the law, in like the law side of things. So it's more black and white because, you know, the law is black and white. So forensics is more like we're just trying to get to that next level of how do we need to put you in outpatient care, inpatient care, psychiatric hospital, or are you competent to stand trial type situation, you know? So that's what
Yeah. Yeah. This is fun. And it's fun for me because it's like I'm just seeing both of you guys speaking your realms, right? It's like it's so much intelligence, so much knowledge that you both are spitting. And me sitting here, I have not a clue what's going on. But you guys have been doing a very good job explaining and making it make sense, to a degree. To a degree. Like as far as I can reach the surface. But it has been truly fun. Like I'm learning a lot, and it's also cool to kind of know the differences in the multiple different, you know, avenues that you can go within psychology. Because like you said, Derek, like most people think about psychology and it's you're laying on the couch or you're sitting in a room and you're just talking to someone for an hour, just whining about your feelings maybe, and then, you know, same time next week. You know what I'm saying? That's how a lot of people think. But you know, just like most technology and other advancements in life, like psychology is evolving as well. So that's really cool to kind of hear you guys kind of elaborate that. So with that being said, you guys are answering these questions, but you know, what is the usual clientele like? So Derek, when you have your clients in your room, like who are you usually working with?
Yeah, I guess I did kind of touch on that a little bit, but the clients that I'm mostly working with right now, I'd say I'm doing a split between, I would say, athletes, general population, and other kind of like again, high stress, high performance jobs. So again, working with whether it's a college athlete, whether it's a retiring athlete, I'm dealing with people who are transitioning from college into professionals right now. Um, Other people that I deal with on top of that are, let's say, people working on their PhDs, people who are, you know, doing postdoc stuff, people who are actual doctors already, lawyers, we call it venture capitalists, investment bankers. That's just to kind of name a few of the kind of like the high end, high pressure jobs. And then again, I'll have ranging from other people who are just, you know, dealing with anxiety and depression in the day to day. Right. So it's a very it's fulfilling in the sense that it's so broad, right? There's a large spectrum of people that I get to work with, which I do enjoy.
With that being said, like Saran, when you get into your practicum and whatnot, do you do you believe that his type of clientele overlaps with yours, or do you think that there are some differentiations or diverse crowds when it comes to like your client group? Well, I guess yours wouldn't really be clients, would they?
I mean, technically they would be clients once I start practicum and everything. They will be real people, like actual clients. But as far as all my professors have told me, don't turn anyone away. Like I can't really be in the position to narrow down who I want to work with because I have no experience. So it's like you need to get all the experience before you can figure out who exactly you want to work with. But even with that, it could overlap in the sense that like I could be working with athletes too, because I know interview with the Child Advocacy Center, they asked me like, have you had experience? And I kind of was, minimizing myself, like, no, I haven't worked in like the trauma area or those dealing with that. And they were like, oh, but we saw that you were a coach. Like you worked with 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. Like that's a way of almost being a counselor, because like 16-year-old girls come to me with more than just,
That's the
oh,
problem.
volleyball issues. Like I'm dealing with social issues, school, like stress, like that. So when they kind of put it in that perspective, I was like, oh, you're right. Like just because they're coming to me for this specific issue of something that could be traumatic, that might not be today's discussion. Like today's discussion could be, I'm failing my class. I need to figure out how to, not be anxious studying for this test. I need to figure out how to, deal with these social pressures. So it could overlap in that sense, or like I'm struggling of performing as an athlete in my high school sport, things like that. So it's like you said, it's really broad. Like even though they may come with a very specific problem, there are other factors that are also working on a person that you also just have to be mindful of, that might present itself today. And then the next session, you might go back to the original problem. So,
Definitely. Even on the basis, right? Derek, you kind of talked about, the different groups of people that you work with. And one I kind of want to go back and specifically kind of address is, men's health. I know that there's this idea that women are nurturers. They grow up understanding and being able to feel and have feelings. But men, for some reason, we have this idea of suppression, or, we don't feel like we can speak to anyone, or, we just don't have that circle. When something happens with a woman, she gets her girls, there's a circle, there's a powwow, and they handle that, right? But as a man, right, like what do we have? And so can you elaborate on, I don't want you to name any clients or any personal things because I know it's confidential, but like, can you elaborate on like how some of those sessions go along?
Yeah, and that's interesting you bring that up. I think there is I think obviously it takes bravery to even, come in and see a counselor or see a psychologist, no matter who you are, whether you're a guy, girl, whatever gender you may be at this time. I think that, it takes a lot of bravery to come in, first of all. So I think one of the things that I found, especially working with men, is um, is to help kind of put out the fire that's them, right? This is kind of actually an analogy I'll use with a client is, right, you're on fire and everything around you is on fire. Okay. And you have an endless bucket of water. But the first thing you have to do to put out your pain, right, is you have to pour that bucket of water on you and put your own fire out first. Okay. And as you put your own fire out first, right, like I said, this is an endless bucket of water. Okay. So this bucket refills. But as you poured that water out, right, a little bit got around you as well. And it started to put out a little bit of that fire around you. Okay. And so there's different obstacles that you kind of go through. And as you're trying to walk these different obstacles and get to this different area, okay, I need to put out this area of this fire. Okay, well, I need to keep dumping this bucket. And that bucket, right, it only dumps out a little bit of that fire. So what does that mean, right? You're going step by step, and it's very slow. And I think that's where people come in, especially guys. They want a solution just like that. And with guys, I try to equip them with things that they can use daily, whether it's breathing, whether it's reframing their thoughts, focusing on their self-talk, just to name like three of them. And then from there, we start to dive in a little bit more to, all right, once we're regulated, once you can kind of control yourself in the day to day, okay, let's look at what's triggering this stuff now. What's the cause of this? And now this gets back into looking at the past, right? Okay, looking, attachment, developmental psychology, right? About how were you brought up and all this kind of stuff. So
That was interesting, man. And I like your analogy. You're so and for those of you guys don't know, like, Derek is it Filipino or Philippines?
what's that?
Are you like part Filipino?
Yeah, partly Filipino, yes.
So that water analogy, you've always been in tune with the water and the beach and stuff like that. So like I picked up on it immediately as soon as you started talking about it. Um, so yeah, with that being said, so Saran, when you think of men's health, are you, and rightfully so, but are you an advocate of men going to therapy as well? Does it work? Do you believe in it?
Yeah, I believe therapy, whatever your form of therapy may look like you said, therapy is not just sitting on a couch. Therapy could be play therapy. There's vast amounts of therapy, but I think everybody could benefit from therapy. And like you said, just figuring out ways to cope from day to day. Like it doesn't have to be anything major. It's just how to regulate yourself in order to face the obstacles you might, deal with every day. But you pointed out, and I have a question for you, and I know this is a secret for all of my professors, but and a lot of people, so I don't even know if you'll disclose it. But do you have like a specific theoretical approach that you kind of lean more towards? Because I know you named like attachment theories and you've named a couple. And for the most part, everybody's like, to be a great psychologist, it has to be integrative. And I totally agree with that. But do you have kind of like a specific theoretical approach you kind of lean on?
Interestingly enough, I actually start off with behavior. So Lamar, you fit right into this conversation. I don't know why you didn't said you didn't, but you do, because I start with the behavior, right? Like I said, I start with those little interventions to, something little to help regulate first. And then I would say it's a little bit more eclectic from there. So, right, it gets from behavioral, then to cognitive, a little bit to psychodynamic, a little bit to DBT, CBT. So it bounces all over. But then I always bring it back again to my base, which is again performance psychology, right? At the end of the day, no matter what, when someone's coming to you, right, they want to get better. So in that sense, right, if you're down here, you're depressed, okay, well, guess what? My job is to get you from here to there, right? Same thing with an athlete, like I mentioned earlier. All right, you're stuck here. Well, I'm going to get you here, right? It's the same thing. Now the problem is different.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And all it is just kind of addressing and where you start off building and go from there. But again, every person's different. So
Yeah. I just wanted to ask because I know you did start with like the behavior and then you're like, and then we go back to which trigger. I'm like, that is that where that psychodynamic goes in. But okay.
yeah.
So in psychology, do you tend to go back? I know you guys said everything's integrated and you can kind of hop, skip, and kind of pull from different realms, but do you tend to always go back to your basis of what it is you actually do specifically, or if it seems to just be working on this side, you won't even go back and touch that?
Depends on the client.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a more in-depth.
No, that was the answer.
Everyone is different, and one of the things I think I realized too is how different everyone is. Right? You read all these books, and Siron, I'm sure can attest to this too. Is that you read all these books, and it's like, okay, well, you get these few blanket statements, and they're just going to work for everyone, and it's like, oh crap, no, it does not. So, you find out really fast, and you'll have some awkward silences in those first few therapy sessions. And you're just like, God dang it, what do I do? And that's on you to use your own tools that you've taught yourself from reading. All right, take control of the situation, breathe, relax, think about your base and go from there.
So Derek, as you are, a doctoral candidate, right? This is where you currently are. Dissertations is in the work. If it's not already published, again, I told you I'm about to go get the book out the library just to have it. But you've kind of done everything that Siron is now working towards. So, like, if you could give her any advice or anything to think about or any ways to, properly prepare, because her practicum is starting in the summer or the fall?
Fall.
In the fall. What are some things that you would advise her to read, think about, kind of just be prepared and ready for it as she's moving forward through this career field?
One thing I will say is do not think that you are doing this alone, because you cannot. Get in close with a group of friends and y'all study together every day, communicate as much as possible. One of the things that I did, I think I made a mistake, is I really was isolated at first during my first semester, and I realized I was like, okay, this isn't working. And luckily I had a really good cohort in my PsyD program, and they were like, come on, Derek, just come study with us one day and we'll see what goes, and ended up loving it. So one, I would definitely say, make sure you get a good group of buddies that keep you honest, right? Keep you dependable. Two, don't stress on sitting there and memorizing every single thing that you're supposed to read. You're going to have to end up reading like 1,000 pages a week. It's almost going to be not possible, right? So the biggest thing is right, learn as much as you need to, but at the same time, there's never going to be a time where you're not learning. Like even right now, like I'm 2 years into this, right? And basically about to be finished with my internship and then go for licensure. But in my 2 years, what I found is the second I think that I'm starting to get a hang on it, something else pops up and I'm just like, yep, I have no idea. I'm just a minnow again in a Shark Tank. So that's the thing, is one of the things I stressed myself out was trying to learn all this information so quickly. And it's impossible. I mean, there's over 100 years worth of philosophy and psychology by itself, and to sit there and think we're going to learn it in the time that we have in a 2-year master's program, or for me an accelerated 3-year PhD program, I mean, it's ludicrous. And yeah, giving ourselves some grace, I think, is the biggest one.
Awesome. So Ron, as you're kind of heading towards into this practicum, what are some differences that you found from basically, I guess, the beginning to where you are now?
I will say it's actually great that you mentioned like a cohort, because that's one of the major things that I've noticed from like starting out in FLP and then doing my clinical side. We're pretty tight over here. Like in the counseling side, I'm really tight with like all of my classmates. We all are in the same classes so I see them 2, 3 times a week. And like we really do kind of lean on each other already. So I'm blessed to hear that you said that. And I kind of already feel like I have that. But what have I noticed from beginning to now? I feel like, I do have like a clearer path. Like when I first came into it, I definitely was all over the place, which as you should be, like you're coming in to figure out where you want to go. But I do feel more comfortable and more prepared, because like I tend to have imposter syndrome where I'm like, I know I'm good at these things, but I'm not really confident that I'm good at it. So like seeing the results and like working through the classes and how they're hands-on, like we actually do um role play and counseling situations like that, and being able to apply what I've learned and feel confident in it is kind of like a better feeling going into practicum for sure. And especially after speaking with them and knowing like they kind of hold your hand into it. Because when you first think practicum, you're like, I'm getting thrown into the Shark Tank with clients. Like, are they going to hate me? And like you said, it could be so sensitive. Like, what I say to this client could work, but what I say to this one, she could perceive it completely different. And it's like, whoa. So I think I'm more comfortable knowing that everyone starts here. And, it's just, you got to figure out
Work your
where
way
you
up
vibe
where
at.
you fit.
And
Yeah.
Well, and one thing too, to piggyback off of what you just said, Saran, too, is that whoever your mentor was who told you that you had the coaching background, that is something that I found that was really helped me going into practicum, because that was the first time I ever ran a session basically face to face individually. But she was like, "You have how many years of coaching experience do you have?" And I was like, "Okay, I see what you're saying." She's like, "You've been
yeah,
doing this face to face every day in right, like not even in vivo, you're in reality doing this, right? So in vivo would be in a, creating a panic attack within a room and then helping someone get over the panic attack within a controlled environment, but we're actually talking about you're in the environment.
Mhm.
And so that's another thing I would say is, when in doubt, to fall back a little bit on your coaching background and then use your skills in psychology and integrate those, right? Because again, you're not screaming at someone, you're not telling them what to do, you're guiding them to what their ultimate decision is. And that's where the finesse comes between being a psychologist and a coach, which I've found as well.
Yeah.
Just to elaborate on you guys' idea of the cohort and working with others, I think that's huge. And it to the basics, like when I was going to school and also when I was working in the school system, like when you see the student counselors, the school counselors, they are always together. Like they are always, but like I'm talking about like real like close knitted family type things oriented in it, and the way you guys are kind of explaining, not only the studies but the experiences that you guys go through, because everyone is doing it. You can kind of understand why their fellowship or their conglomeration. I'm trying to be big words like y'all, conglomeration of group of people, and why they stick together like that. So it's cool to see that. I just got about two more questions for you guys, and I'll let you guys go. One of my biggest question for you guys, and take a time, think about it if you have to, but do you think, and especially in the world today, do you think psychology is important? No, and I'm talking about in the sense of like in just in realm. Do you think it's important? And if the new generation, whether they're going to therapy or finding ways to be more expressive or want to pursue this career path, you know, how do they get involved in that? Like, how do you find a way to be a little bit more inviting to this idea?
Strong, you want to start, or you want to take this one?
I guess I can start. I definitely think psychology is very important, just not even just from like a mental health perspective, but what I'm personally learning is like everything psychology can be literally applied to anything. It's the study of human behavior, human cognitions. So it's like, why am I thinking these things? We can actually backtrack to figure out like where is this coming from. So it kind of just provides you with not concrete answers, but it just gives you like contributing factors of like where everything is stemming from, and it kind of puts things into a better perspective. So I think psychology is very important, and as it continues to evolve, it's just going to be like great to see when everybody dives into psychology and just falls in love with the human mind. So I think it's very important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I
He
think
said,
psychology.
he said that part.
Yeah, like yeah, I mean, mic drop with that. I mean, that covers it right there to me. But yeah, no, I mean that the just simply being able to uncover more of who you are, I think is one of the greatest gifts that psychology gives to people, and they might not necessarily know, right? And they're that's what is so fun about working with people, is that every day it's kind of like, okay, it's it's a new challenge, and it definitely is anxiety provoking, but it's also exciting on that same spectrum,
Mhm.
right? And so one, I think the thing that's most fulfilling about psychology is when you really see someone who starts to blossom into their own being, right? And drops this kind of mask, this Jungian mask, as Carl Jung likes to say, one of the great founders of psychology. But yeah, drops this mask and really becomes their authentic self, which is, it's very difficult to get there. And again, we're always evolving as human beings, no matter what. But again, to live the most authentically you can, of course, that who wouldn't want that? I think.
How do we make psychology more inviting? Like, how do we get more people to be open to the idea of therapy and psychology? How do we go about that? There, you can go first on this one because Siron, I guess you went first.
No, I mean, that's a great question. And I think, one of the things that we talk about a lot, especially when we were in school, was, talking about what psychology was based on, which is, old, rich, Western white men, right? So like it was a very inaccessible field back then, um,
Okay.
pretty much to anybody outside of, yeah, old Western European white
Western
dudes.
white
So
men.
yeah,
Yep.
for me to be a mixed kid, and for people of color in general, it was really out of the question for us to get into it. So I would say the field is changing right now. Um, but it definitely is one of those occupations where right now it is a little bit in this gray area where it is difficult to get into once you want to go for like PhD doctorate, because it does cost, the cost of it is so much more. So again, to get into master's degree, again, not to say that's cheap, because it is not, but you can get into it and sit there and be on the master's level, and you can know more than a PhD. Like and I've seen it. So it really just depends on how far you want to go and what you want to do with it. But accessibility wise, the one thing that is great and that did stem off of COVID is now these online master's programs, which have been really, really effective in helping expand and kind of give more access to people who want to be in the field and even learn about mental health in general.
Siron.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. As far as also with even if it's not a structured, I'd say psychology thing, you can still be like a volunteer counselor or just find ways of working with people. Cause like psychology is really, especially counseling, is interpersonal. So like you're being interpersonal right now. Like you talking to me is a skill that you have to have a counselor. So it's like just giving people the knowledge of the resources that are available to them, of course. And like you said, it did start as a like focus on old white men. And that's I'm actually taking a multicultural course this summer. So that's really been like the hard driven thing of like all my classes, all of our studies right now is like, how does this theory apply to multicultural? How does this apply to multicultural? Like that's really the background of we want to be more broad and more open to the public or the general population. So yeah, he really hit it on the head though. So,
Awesome. Right? You both are doing mic drops. You guys are doing great. This has been awesome. My last question, just to kind of liven up the episode a little bit more and let you guys kind of dive into the true reasons of psychology. How many of your family members have y'all diagnosed already? Like with things. Like how many every now that you guys know so much, right? You guys just walk around and just diagnose all your family members on the past things they were doing. Like what are some of your like favorite things to do or stories you remember or anything when you first like was like, that makes sense why cousin so and so was like this or my brother's like this or something like or my mom.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny because off the top of my head, I can't think of necessarily funny stories that didn't originally start off as painful that I didn't have to work through that now became funny. So in a way, I don't want to say those because it does throw
Uh,
someone else under the bus. So, but I will say this: there have been those absolute moments where I will be walking around like, oh my God, like
Mhm.
I've been
you
blind
have this.
for 30 years to this, and it'll just hit you one day. I mean, actually, okay, for example, one time I was reading really in depth this psychodynamic book, which really goes into upbringing um, and really dives into past and parental kind of relationship and whoever your parents are, whether it's adoptive, real parents, biological, whoever the parent figure is in your life. And I was really diving into it for about a month, and I I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just shot up like I mean like Manchurian Candidate out of bed, like in full tears, right? Like I had just come out of my sleep, come to this realization, right, in full tears, crying my eyes out, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" But it was such a cathartic moment. But at the same time,
Hmm.
if the pain of it obviously caused
Right.
the tears, but then to let it out was such an amazing moment, and for it to happen in that way, just to sit up at 5 a.m. like that randomly. I mean, I wish I had a videotape because it was literally like that, and just to be crying, and then I started laughing at myself, and then it was just the whole scene right there with me by myself in the middle of the night. So it was great. But yes, that was a scene that stands out to me when I was having those
Definitely.
aha moments.
Saran kind of already diagnosed us, but yeah, go ahead, man.
It happens way more often than you think. And it's unconscious at this point. Like it's just like when certain things you're like, huh, that so yes, I've diagnosed you before. Not actually, but it's certain things, behaviors you have. I know my old roommate, like she would explain something to me and I immediately like a situation with her uncle and her aunt and it was something so crazy, like actually very traumatic. But I was like, oh, it sounds like he has like, and I just named like a schizophrenic or something disorder. And like she looked up the news article and I had perfectly diagnosed him. They were like, he had like schizoaffective things like that. And I was like, sorry, girl, I just literally learned about that in my class. And he had those exact same like characteristics and how it all played out. So it happens more often than you would think. It's almost like second nature. And I guess that's when you really start like you're obviously an expert at this point. So it really is second nature for you. But like when things start
Comprehension.
coming up like that, it's just like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at what I'm doing if I can
Hmm.
catch it like that. So it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I just think it's funny, man. You guys make me laugh, especially when it could just when you're just sitting around the house and then out of nowhere, like whether someone's singing out loud or tripped up the stairs or something like or something, you gotta be like, why are you this way? Like, oh, he has a, and then there's a big vocabulary word that no one in the house knows but you, and then you go into depth about it. But no, that's one thing I like, of course, I'm a proud big brother of Saran, so it's cool. It's cool to see her like truly understanding what she's doing and has a backup and a reason for everything that she says. So much applause to her, but much applause to you as well because like I said, we were together for like almost 2 years, and we did what we did, and you were doing a lot of the same things whether we were in Australia or Mexico. We were we were just having a good time, but observing the world together from different lenses and understanding it however way we best comprehend. So, before we all go, one last thing, Derek, for you, your dream job, your passion. I know you are working right now. Do you see yourself maybe, opening up your own practice in the future? Do you see yourself maybe doing anything specific or, a little bit more direct with more so sports related as opposed to a broad spectrum of clientele or, you know, realm?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question. I definitely see myself one day opening my own practice. Again, I'm still young right now. So again, like I said, there is so much to learn. And the second I think I'm getting it, it's like, oh no, there's 1,000 more things you've got to read. So right now I'm actually in no hurry, and that's been, I think, one of the toughest things for me, and working with myself, right? Working with my own psychology is just wanting everything
Hey,
so wanting it
yeah,
now. And
patient.
just realizing this takes time. So, again, yes, do I want my own practice one day? Absolutely. Do I want to focus on, college athletes, professional athletes? Absolutely. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, I am just trying to soak up as much information and enjoy the time. Because the second I start thinking too much in the future, boom, anxiety hits, and we don't need that. So,
And that's kind of crazy, right? Like a lot of people wouldn't think that, psychologists actually have, anxiety or actual feelings or have actual things that normal human beings have that they're diagnosing or that they're working with. And so, for you to say that you still, as far as you are along this track, still can open yourself up to anxiety and getting yourself. Do you ever talk to anybody at all? Like, do you talk to people at
yeah,
times?
no, I think I mentioned that in the very beginning. Yeah, every psychologist, counselor, social worker, whatever you may be, you should have your own psychologist as well. I mean, there is no way. And again, it goes back to not just in school. It takes a village, right? And you need someone to be able to unload some of the stuff that you take on from your clients, and you need someone else to be able to hold the weight with you, right? And obviously, we can't sit there and talk to our family members. Right? There's confidentiality that we can't breach,
Mm-hmm.
so there has to be
Mm-hmm.
someone else that we talk to. So yes, I absolutely have a therapist, and I mean, thank goodness for it.
So it's around for you. I know you, like you said, you're just starting your practicum, you're getting into it, but have you thought past to where you might want to be or where you want to go specifically in the future?
Like you said, future thinking, I'm very present oriented. I get scared thinking too far ahead. So I'm definitely trying to just, especially since this is such a major big step of actually working with real clients, I really do just want to like soak it all in and not limit myself of like this is what I want to do, boom, boom, boom. Like I do want to get all the experience that I can with all different types of people to figure out really what I want to do with that. So I'm just taking it step by step, day by day, class by class.
Awesome, you guys. Well, before we go, Derek, if you could by chance, let the people know, let the audience know where they can find you, social media, if you have any websites, any links, anything that we could do to support you and stay in contact with you. True, you can get more clientele from the people who be watching this or listening to this. So, how can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, just under Derek Hurschman, DerekHurschman. So I'm on LinkedIn. I try to post there. Haven't been able as much recently, but I will try to get back on that, especially now that we just did this. Hopefully, I can pull some clips from this and post some stuff that we talked about. And then on top of that, I am also on Instagram. I have a psychology and sport page. It's called Hollywood Sport and Psych. That is all one word. So yeah, Hollywood, one word, sport, not sports, sport, and the word actual and, not the symbol for it, and psych, Psych. So Hollywood Sport and Psych is me on Instagram. So yeah, follow me on either one. And yeah, those are the socials I'm on.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure to tag. I usually always add things to the bottom of the episodes as well, so people can find it easier that way. Um, by the way, so Derek and I used to have this argument too by who was the real Hollywood, by the way. Um, I knew I didn't he used it in his username, his tag. So I guess by default, I guess I'll let him have it. However, Hollywood is in my bio. So we're still fighting for that title. Who truly is
And
more
listen, you
Hollywood
did
than
an
the other?
unfair poll. You polled it on Instagram, and no one on your Instagram knows me. So that doesn't count.
Right,
Of
right, right,
course, they're
right.
going
Of
to
course,
vote you.
of course, of course. It's got to be biased, I gotta. It's home court advantage. I'm not gonna go to your side if I can pull it. That'd be. But no, we'll redo the poll. We'll redo it and make sure it's right. Saran, you know, you don't really have none yet because you're going through practicum and
Oh,
you're actually a co-host to this show, so everyone knows where you are. So we can. you guys can find her on our webpage and our social media. If you need her, that's where she'll be. Anything else you guys got for the audience listening? Anything else you want to share? Anything new? Anything in life?
I just wanted to say I appreciate you both for having me, and Siron, seriously, best of luck moving forward. I mean, you have a really exciting journey coming up, and practicum is going to be awesome, and I'm sure you're going to kill it. I know you're nervous probably working with the first one, but yeah, again, remember, you were a coach, you know what it is to work with someone and really directly help someone face to face like that, and you can actually, you know, interact with them on a much different level. So you've got it already. So if you ever need anything to fall back on, remember that you have that background, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do as you move forward. And I'm sure it's going to be great things.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being on here and I love hearing like experts in this field talk because it's just so amazing to me, like how you guys just know things. So
There's no thing.
Hey,
That's
listen,
all both.
you're doing
That's
very
all y'all
well
did.
yourself. So I will reciprocate that very much. And of course, Lamar, it's awesome to see you, man. You know,
I'm
from
just a moderator. That's all I was. There
from
was no knowledge coming from me. I was just the moderator with the questions. That was it, people. That's all I do is ask the questions. I let them take it away. But yeah, thank you.
From Australia to Mexico, man, from all those different places that we both lived together. I mean, hey, I appreciate you, and I'm glad we
Absolutely.
maintain our brotherhood and our family. So it's
For sure. And we'll definitely continue that moving forward. I don't see anything changing. This bond is going to be what it is forever. And now Siron is now involved in it. You guys got a link. So we done triangulated this. So we're all good. So again, I want to thank you, Derek, for coming on the show, coming on the episode, man. It was awesome. Again, great idea from the time we talked. And pretty much it was a perfect connection for this episode. And for you guys, please, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share this episode with your friends and family. This is a good one. I hope you guys had your notebooks out because Professor Siron and Dr. Derek have just dropped so many lessons and vocabulary words and all the other things you guys needed to know. But yeah, man, it's been fun, man. This was real fun, and I truly appreciate you. So with that, guys, as always, we're going to be out of here. 2 fingers, peace and love. 2 fingers, 2 up, 2 down. 2 fingers, deuces. And we are out. Thank you.